Hello from the Hyperledger Global Forum in Dublin. I'm delighted to be joined by Hart Montgomery, CTO of Hyperledger. Good afternoon, Hart.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Hart, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Hart, could you introduce the role of the CTO at Hyperledger? What does that all mean?
Sure, absolutely. It's very broad. So roughly speaking, my job is to help lead the technical direction of Hyperledger. And this encompasses, a huge amount of things, from helping set various technical policies to helping organize groups, and to sort of acting as like a technical figurehead and helping explain things to people and sort of being one of the faces of the project.
So congratulations on getting everyone from all your global community together here in Dublin. I know it's a great time for collaborating and discussing, but what are the key priorities that you see going forward from the CTO's office for Hyperledger in the coming 12 months?
That's a great question. So priority number one for us is probably security. So as blockchain continues to grow and to become more accepted, in the member summit on Sunday, I talked about how enterprise blockchain was becoming boring. It was becoming acceptable. People just were like, well, this is just another enterprise blockchain deployment. Why do I care? It's not exciting. And I actually think that's great because it is becoming more mainstream and it is becoming more accepted. But if we want to be accepted by all of these enterprises, if we want the high value systems to be built on the blockchain, we need to make sure that people have confidence in our security and that we're following all of the most rigorous and toughest best practices and that we are running the tightest ship we can in terms of security. So that's a big priority for me. Another priority is avoiding fragmentation and helping people within Hyperledger who were working on similar things avoid duplication and work together. So an example of this is recently, you may have seen the news about the Cactus project merging with the Weaver Lab.
Project Cacti.
To become Project Cacti, exactly. And these two groups are working on very similar things. And in the long run, it would save a lot of effort if they work together. In the short term, it's always a little more difficult because this is one of these things that, there's a short-term cost for getting everybody to work together, but there's a huge long-term benefit. And so one of the things I really focus on is to try to make these things happen where we can.
So maybe I'd like to elaborate a little bit further, is that the importance of security and the importance of, was there a particular momentum that drove this to be such a priority this year? Just to elaborate on why that was selected and the importance of that.
Well, I think security is just becoming more paramount with everything, right? I mean, you're probably familiar with the Log4j bug and all of this stuff, and people are really waking up in the open source community to the importance of security. And my background is in academic cryptography, so I've sort of always been on this train. But when I joined the Linux Foundation this year, I said one of my priorities was going to be, I want us to really push security. I want us to follow all the best practices. I want us to be ahead of the curve. I want us to be the organization that people, derive their security policies from, because we're doing it right.
And looking back on joining the Linux Foundation this year and where you are now, here we sit in September 2022, is there a key highlight you'd like to share over your journey so far with the audience?
Well, I've only been here really recently, and it's interesting because I've actually been involved in Hyperledger since the very beginning. So previously I worked at Fujitsu Research, where I worked on cryptography research and blockchain research, and I've been on all of the technical steering committees of Hyperledger. So it's not really fair to say I'm totally new, because I'm actually quite old in the process. But we have some recent accomplishments, or we've put together a security task force. We're revamping our bug bounty program. We're working on a full, CVE pipeline. So we have a lot of things in the works, some of which are accomplished, but a lot of which are, still being done. And we're really excited about those.
I've got two final questions. So a question really of the role that Hyperledger plays in the championing of the interoperability, I think would be great things to share with everyone. So maybe just touch on a couple of points there and elaborate on that, please, Hart.
Great question. So I was actually involved in the Hyperledger interoperability from the very beginning. So I was actually, from my time at Fujitsu, the proposer of the Cactus project. So it's been really exciting for me to see this grow. And Hyperledger is really a place for when people different people or different companies want to work together in an open source environment. That's what Hyperledger is for blockchain. That's what the Linux Foundation is for in general. And so interoperability is really a space that sort of necessitates working together, right? If I want my blockchain to work with your blockchain, we're going to have to work together. And, who sort of gets to control that, right? We might fight over it, we might not agree. So a place like the Linux Foundation and for blockchain, for Hyperledger, is a perfect spot for that.
Brilliant. I've got one final question, Hart. If there's one thing you wanted to share with our audience, a particular value that you wanted to throw a spotlight on from being part of this Hyperledger community, what would it be?
So I really love the full open development process of Hyperledger and the Linux Foundation in general. So there's a distinction between open source software and open development software that a lot of people don't realize. So anybody can, publish their code and call it open source. In Hyperledger and in general in the Linux Foundation, we have a full open development model where not only can anyone use the code, but anyone can contribute to the code. Leadership positions in the technical organization are decided entirely on merit. You contribute, you become a maintainer, you work your way up to the technical leadership. So it is really, truly open. And that's something I want to emphasize.
Brilliant. Hart, thank you so much for spending time today. Thank you so much for sharing your project coming up, security and efficiency, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's been great talking.